You made a decision today. You felt it clearly. You weighed something, you considered it, and then you chose. The whole sequence felt deliberate. It felt like you. But in 1983, a neuroscientist named Benjamin Libet ran an experiment at the University of California that produced a result so uncomfortable that researchers spent the next 40 years arguing about whether it could possibly be true. And the argument is still not settled because the data keeps saying the same thing. Your brain decides before you do. Not by a little, by nearly half a second. In every trial, in hundreds of participants, the neural signal that corresponds to a voluntary movement was already underway in the brain before the person was consciously aware of any intention to move. The decision by every electrical measure available had already been made. The awareness of choosing came after, not before, not simultaneously, after. Libet called the moment of conscious awareness the readiness potential. He had people watch a clock and report the precise moment they felt the urge to flex their wrist. And every single time, the brain activity that preceded the movement started an average of 550 milliseconds before the person felt anything, before the intention, before the awareness, before the experience of choosing. For a moment, think about what that means outside a laboratory. Think about how many decisions you make in a day that feel like conscious, deliberate choices. What you click on, what you pick up, what you stop scrolling to read. What you almost buy and then do buy, and then tell yourself you decided to buy. That feeling of deciding is real. The neuroscience question is whether it is the cause or whether it is the narration. Because here is what Libet also found. In a small number of trials, when people did feel the urge to move and then chose to stop themselves at the last moment they could, the veto was real. Consciousness couldn't initiate the decision, but it could sometimes catch and cancel it, which means you are not a passive observer of a brain that runs on autopilot, but you are also not the originator of every choice that feels like yours. You are something closer to an editor, working at the very end of the process, with less time than you think. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman at Princeton University spent decades building the architecture around what Libet's biology implied. He called it System 1 and System 2. System 1 is fast, automatic, emotional, effortless, and almost entirely unconscious. System 2 is slow, deliberate, logical, effortful, and the one you believe is running your life. The critical finding was not that System 1 exists. Most people can accept that gut reactions happen. The critical finding was the proportion. System 1 is running the show almost all the time. System 2 is not the driver. It is the spokesperson. It takes whatever System 1 has already produced and constructs a reason for it that sounds intentional. You do not decide to want something and then reach for it. You reach for it and then you decide you wanted it. Nowhere is this gap more consequential than in the moment of a financial choice. Neuroscientist Antonio Damasio at the University of Southern California spent years studying patients with damage to the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, a region that connects the rational planning areas of the brain to the emotional body state signals that underlie instinct and feeling. These patients were, by every standard measure, intelligent. Their reasoning was intact. Their memory was intact. Their language was intact, but they could not make decisions, not bad decisions, any decisions. Without the emotional signal connecting the reasoning to a felt sense of rightness or wrongness, the rational mind produced endless analysis and no conclusion. What Damasio called the somatic marker hypothesis reframed everything. The body flags options before the conscious mind evaluates them. A faint physical signal, something in the gut, the chest, the fingertips, says yes or no before a single reason has been articulated. And then the conscious mind arrives, surveys the already weighted landscape, and begins building a case for whichever direction the body already leaned. This is the actual sequence of a purchase. Not, you think, therefore you buy, but something in you already moved toward it, and then your thoughts arranged themselves into permission. Now add the final piece. Psychologist Bargh at Yale University ran a series of experiments that have since become among the most cited and most debated in all of behavioral science. In one, participants were primed with words associated with elderly people, words like Florida, bingo, gray, retired, without any reference to walking or speed. After the experiment, they walked down the hallway more slowly than the control group. They had not been told to walk slowly. They were not aware of any change. Their behavior had been altered by an idea they had absorbed, processed, and acted on without a single moment of conscious engagement. In another study, participants who briefly held a warm cup of coffee before meeting a stranger rated that stranger as having a warmer personality. Participants who held a cold cup rated the stranger as colder. The sensation in the hand had migrated into a social judgment without passing through any deliberate thought at all. Think about where you shop. Think about the smell inside a store, the lighting, the music playing at a tempo specifically chosen to slow your walking pace. Think about the color of a price tag. Think about the particular font used to show you how much something costs. Every one of these elements is a prime, a body-level signal that arrives before your reasoning does, tilts the somatic marker, and begins constructing the permission that your conscious mind will shortly experience as a free choice. You did not decide to feel comfortable in that store. You were made comfortable, and by the time you noticed you were buying something, the decision had already been assembled in a part of your brain you will never have direct access to. This is not pessimistic. Understanding the mechanism is not the same as surrendering to it. Libet's veto was real. The conscious mind cannot start the process, but it can sometimes interrupt it. And Kahneman's system too, while not the originator of your choices, can be trained, not to override everything, which is impossible, but to notice the pause between impulse and action, not to eliminate the somatic marker, which is also impossible and would leave you paralyzed like Damasio's patience, but to add one deliberate beat to the sequence. What changes when you understand this is not what you want. What changes is how you interpret the experience of wanting it. That pull you feel towards something, that immediate, wordless sense of yes, is not a judgment. It is a proposal. Your System 1 is handing you a draft. Your System 2, if it is rested and not depleted, can read the draft before it signs off. The financial environment is specifically designed to bypass that pause. The countdown timer, the one-click purchase, the layout that makes the premium option feel natural before you have calculated its actual cost. These are not accidents. They are architectural decisions made by people who understand the gap between your unconscious decision and your conscious awareness of it, and who know from decades of research exactly how short that gap is and exactly how to fill it before you can use it. What researchers also found is that the window can be stretched, not dramatically, not reliably, and not without effort, but measurably. Kahneman found that System 2 becomes more accessible when you are not depleted, not rushed, and not emotionally activated. Three conditions that the modern purchasing environment is specifically engineered to prevent. The checkout line is not long by accident. The flash sale ends in 11 minutes not by accident. The suggested item appears at the exact moment you have already committed to buying something else, not by accident. Every element around a financial decision is calibrated to keep your window closed, which means the act of simply pausing, of creating friction between the impulse and the action, is not a small or symbolic thing. It is the only countermeasure that addresses what is actually happening at the neural level: a waiting period, a second screen. A rule made in advance, before the somatic marker has been activated. These work not because they make you smarter, but because they give your System 2 a moment to arrive at the conversation before it is already over. You are not irrational. You are not impulsive. You are a biological system that evolved to decide quickly and justify carefully, operating inside an environment that was built to meet you at the exact moment between the two. The decision was already forming before you felt it. What you do in the half-second after is the only window you have ever actually had. You made a decision today. And now, at least, you know how much of it was really yours.